just friend Kruma and Daddy Bosco. They join you here. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm great, thank you.
Looking great as usual.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So congratulations, I must say to you, that this has been pulled off. Corruption has been an albatross over our necks over a long time. But then somebody would ask, why now?
Why now?
Yes.
And like EL said yesterday, one would say, does corruption really affect me? But that is when we're looking at corruption from, let's say, and assuming that corruption is place in big arenas. However, corruption is an everyday thing, and corruption affects every facet of life. So the union, 4 years ago we took part in the peaceful election called by Star Ghana. And the excuse me, the union, we need support to do work. So when Star Ghana made this call for people to come up with ideas, since we had this idea already to fight corruption, we felt that with some support coming from that area, this was the right occasion to make such a move. Yeah.
This would largely fall in the laps of the NCCE because it's your duty to ensure that the Constitution is protected and all of that. How do you plan to execute this to filter into the subconscious minds of the citizenry?
I think it's tried to say that music is a powerful tool and it has the ability to influence. And for that matter, in fact, I'll extend music to mean the creative arts.
Right.
And so if you look at the NACAP, the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan, there is indeed space for the creative arts to play a role in the fight against corruption. For NCCE, we are very much aware of the potency of the creative arts in affecting and changing mindset. And so if we all agree that corruption has become so endemic that even children of tender ages understand and actually have an inclination towards corruption, then it's important that we begin to use the creative arts to affect mindset. We begin to use the creative arts to transform our minds and change our attitudes towards habits that are prone to corruption. And so we thought that, well, already MUSIGA is situated within NACAP, and therefore it was not at all out of place for NCCE to join hands with MUSIGA in our continuous efforts to fight corruption. I think we should also bear in mind that beyond NACAP, NCCE has a 4-year plan with the EU on a project called Arab that also seeks to complement the NACAP in our fight against corruption, public accountability. And it's important that we link these two and bring on board as many groupings as possible to fight corruption. As he said, corruption affects each and every single member of society. So everybody must be on board to fight this menace.
Daddy Bosco, whenever we talk about corruption, we think first of political corruption. But corruption comes in many different facets, as we have agreed now. How do we make sure that creatively we shift this paradigm? And my listeners or my viewers have been worried about the nature of songs that are being produced now. Show flesh on your bones and shake something and talk about love, and that's it. Does it worry you?
Actually, the union a couple of months ago, sometime last year, we issued a statement, and when it looked like the lyrical content of our songs had gone off, and we called on the NMC to monitor the entertainment media landscape, because the NMC pays a lot of attention to political language, so they name and shame when it comes to the political space. We called on them to do same for entertainment, so that they check songs that are played, or at least they check stations that allow these songs to play. The next was PDs and station managers and things to monitor what their presenters play.
Okay.
And then the presenters themselves, they should be conscious of the songs they play. And then we appealed to our own musicians to be mindful. And we believed that with this sort of approach, it would corral the spread of unwholesome lyrical content. Now, back to what we seek to do with this whole project.
Because I've seen EL, Sinasol, Chame Kwame, and Dr. Nilante.
Yeah.
It come through 4 generations, if you ask me, or maybe 3.
Yeah.
Why did you choose them, for example, and how do you hope that this would impact on any change that we're looking for?
Okay, Kiddy 2 is on it.
Kiddy, I beg your
Kiddy's
pardon,
on it.
forgive me.
The
Kiddy
whole
is there.
thing is we realized that the sound of today, if you listen to the song
Your
EL
Ghana,
played,
my Ghana.
yeah, it's a very catchy ditty, you know. So we felt that if we use these people who have huge constituencies, who have huge following, and they're well respected. You remember Richmond said that in choosing the voices, we sought to choose quote unquote clean artists. So these artists represent, like you say, a certain component of our population, and they are very powerful people. People look up to them, people respect them. So each of them is singing to a direct segment of the population. And we're hopeful that this song will
Madam, let's talk about curriculum, for example,
Yes.
how to affect the younger generation. How do we draw them along even in their formative years so that they are also properly situated in the fight against corruption? Do we have plans?
Yes, the Ghana Education Service is in the process of reviewing and rolling out a totally new curriculum. And situate within that is an aspect of civics that runs through as a theme through most of the subjects.
Okay.
One of the key things that we're looking at is the issue of values
Okay.
that we must begin to inculcate in our children from a very early age, so from the formative years. And if you look at values, then you're looking at what pertains in the home, what goes on in school as it complements training at home,
Okay.
what goes on the religious platforms. And so it is not just curriculum, so to speak,
Okay.
that would help mold the children, but it's a comprehensive,
Holistic approach.
yes, very holistic approach.
From the home,
to
school, to church.
business, you know. So it's a wide array of what guides our lives as we move on, and what we are going to do to ensure that our children going forward understand key values.
This project is funded by Star Ghana.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what if Star Ghana runs out of cash and decides that, well, I'm done with you for 2 years? What happens to the plan?
Well, I think yesterday we spoke about that and said beyond Star Ghana, we should sustain this. Of course, we need to look beyond what Star Ghana is providing, go out there and seek funding,
Okay.
seek support from the media, seek support from the business arena, seek support from religious entity platforms. All of them must be on board to make this work. So it cannot be MUSIGA alone playing a role here. It cannot be NCCE, GII. No, all facets of society must join hands in this fight.
And in talking about that, Daddy, let me draw you in now. There are over 400 radio stations in Ghana alone, a little over 30 TV stations. What's our media plan? Because yesterday we mentioned malaria-free future, take your girl child to school. It took consistency to get them. And at the time, we had just GBC and a few, so we could have control over it. You were a head of station at the time. You could have control over it. Now, control is...
Good.
What's our media plan?
So our media plan is to engage a few key people who appreciate the need for this, and then start working with them. And then beyond that, we're appealing to the wider media community that might not be involved in our initial media campaign plan to come on board, because we believe strongly that this is something that affects us, and you don't need to to be formally invited to the dinner party, let me put it that way.
Okay.
What you need to do is once you have the song, you go with it. Yesterday, Obo mentioned 10 bullet points that we had come up with.
Piracy is corruption. Ayola
right.
Soli is corruption. Be a whistleblower. Corruption is everywhere. Leaders not the only corrupt persons. Don't abuse power. Taking advantage of the vulnerable is corruption. Giving big gifts. Corruption affects health delivery. Conflict of interest is corruption. Avoid it. Absenteeism, abuse of time for office. Use private business corruption, and corrupt powers, all levels of leadership. So these are the 10.
So we have we've done some graphics on these, and we'll employ people like you who have huge followings to share them on your social media handles, and also for presenters to use some of these slogans during their work. This is something that involves everybody. And let's all put our shoulders to the wheel.
But I'll give you the final word, and I'd be worried about the fact that the political class, most especially, and some of their major following, have had to condemn corruption at a point, and they have had to equalize it at the same time. So when it doesn't favor them, they equalize it. Oh, now in 2012, you people did this. In 2016, you did this. So if it's happening now, like what we saw yesterday, what doesn't happen before? How does the NCCE intend to break that jinx of condemn when it is on your side and equalize when it's on the other side? How does the NCCE intend to?
I think the first step is for the illumination of minds of citizens. And when citizens begin to understand that this game of equalization, ultimately it's the citizen that suffers, then they would begin to put pressure to bear on the politicians. Today, everybody is speaking up against vigilantism. You know, previously it was something that was left as a political issue. But we are now beginning to understand that it has the potential to derail democracy. And in that wake, it also has the potential to put everyone's life in danger. And so everybody is speaking up against it. The whole idea, as we bring other stakeholders on board, of course, is to amplify the dangers of corruption, how it undermines democracy, and ultimately how it affects our rights as citizens, and what obligations we have to speak up. And so once you have the citizenry playing their role in speaking up loudly against corruption, politicians will begin to sit up and realize that I can't sit perhaps on air and say, well, yes, you're saying we have done this, but you forget what you did, and begin to address the issues of corruption.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. You'll be hearing the voices and seeing the fine faces of the Director of Communications and Special Project at MUSIGA, and Madam Josephine Nkrumah is also the chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education. Yesterday was the grand launch. MUSIGA, Ghana Actors Guild, GII, the Star Ghana, and NCCE, they put together a very fantastic plan to fight corruption. Now, go tell who hasn't heard and who hasn't watched that the fight is on. Turn the heat up and let's bend them all.